So, hi guys, it's gonna be John. Hey stream, it's gonna be Jonathan Evans, also known as Israel, and Nick Borgi, also known as Like4. We're gonna be commentating this set. So, what do you think about this set? Just before going in, based on what you know of these two players, Nick.
I don't. So, I definitely think that Patrick is more well known right now, and
I heard WolfShock did pretty well recently in, I believe it was Australian regionals.
Really? I didn't actually hear that.
Yeah, that's. I think that's where I've heard of him. He's reasonably well known in the Australian community. I'm not really sure what they think of him. I haven't done that much research into him. Patrick, definitely more well known on the US circuit. He's been around since 2012.
I can't actually hear anything right now because of all the sound back. All the feedback.
From what? From feedback from what? Is everything good, Nick?
It's like someone doesn't have headphones in, so I can hear myself, and it's like going over.
That's irritating. Pat, you there? You should mute yourself.
Yeah.
And step away from the commentating, so that you can't hear us. You should mute yourself in the sound. Sound good? Cool. So okay, so right now we can see that Patrick is he's downloading his update to his DS in his game. We're probably going to get this match underway soon. So as I was saying, Patrick, a bit more well known among the US players, known very well for streaming all of his matches, which I think is fantastic for the game.
I love actually his streams. They're a lot of fun to be on. They're a lot of fun to watch. So Patrick he's definitely a really good player. I like the way he plays. He likes to play conservatively at first until he gets enough information.
Yeah, I haven't actually played Patrick in a tournament yet, but you played him at the King's Games PC, right?
Yeah, I played him in both top 8 at the Brooklyn PC and during round 4 of the
Swiss at the
one.
Bluebell.
Yeah, Bluebell. Round 4 Swiss at Bluebell.
And so, So, what were your impressions from that match? Those matches.
Oh, I know what the problem is. I'm watching the stream. That's what the problem is. I had the stream on so I could hear it through my own headphones.
Yes, it is. It's a bit confusing. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I did that once and then I shut that down.
Yeah. So, okay.
Now that we got that fixed, how were your matches against him when you played him at the PC?
Well, at the PC, they were great matches. He's definitely a really good player because I like the way how he loves to scout for information before doing anything major. He had talked about how he had scouted for my Scarf Thunderous and was willingly losing his Landorus to my Thunderous if it had in fact been Scarf just for the sake of information. So I feel if he gets enough information in game 1, he can really pull back in games 2 and 3.
Yeah, I personally tend to assume a little bit about items when I first see Pokemon. Because most Thunderous T, it's safest to assume that they're Scarf. No reason to particularly play for information, but the information battle is actually something that I find particularly interesting. Because information, you can't really use it that well in a best of one. Best of one, you just gotta play really fast. You gotta play, just straight through. But
that's how a lot of teams end up doing well in Swiss, and then
poorly in the best of 3. Because
exactly, Evan Ferroy, I remember he was a guy who top cut with a really interesting team. He had the Primeape and a
the Primeape guy, yeah.
that team seems like it would be perfect to catch your opponent off guard in a best of one.
Because no one has any idea what Primate does.
Exactly.
But in a best of three, not necessarily the best choice, because once they figure out what Primate does, you can play around it.
Exactly. So Patrick is definitely more of a best of three player than he is a best of one, which is why he kind of struggles to top cut the events. But once yes, Major Battle 1, aka T-Man syndrome.
Oh yeah, I thought it was T-Man syndrome. yeah, that is T-Man syndrome is a bit rough. Tommy, a player famous for going 9-0 in multiple Swiss events and then failing to win a single top cut event for a very, very long time. Best of threes, when you have a team that has a couple of surprises, you can just power through some players, not really need to do much in order to, like as long as they're caught off by surprise, if you're using say something like Meowstic Mawile and staggering yourself, you can get really strong hits off, and many players aren't really well posed to take that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think really makes a good team. Like a team has to be able to have some sort of best of one options, but also need to be able to perform well in best of three when your opponents know your tricks.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, I think, is adaptation, the best of three. Because against you, for example, game one, I decided to bring a Hydreigon because I was scared of the Heatran and the Excadrill, considering what else I was bringing. And then game two, I decided to go for the Aegislash too, because I remember, how Aegislash effectively deals with your team, because Salamence can't do much to it and Clefairy can't do much to it. But in game one, you decided to go for Clefairy, answering the Hydreigon, and then game two, you managed to read that a bit harder and go for the Heatran as opposed to the Clefairy.
Yes, like when you're in a position where like you realize a Pokemon didn't really do anything for you, I think it's a safe play to assume that they're probably not going to bring it again unless there's a really, really strong reason as to why.
Yeah, because I can see what you're saying. Many people, bring a Pokemon, loses them the game, they decide, I'm not bringing that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what I expected, but I mean, it was kind of a risky play, like half my plays. But
I mean, you got to make some risky plays to win in a best of three, and when you're up game one, there's not as much harm to it as you'd think. It's time to go for reads. Oh yeah, thanks Patrick. Now we can hear the music.
Yeah, we can hear the music now. So looking at Patrick's team, he said his team consists of Aegislash, Arcanine, Salamence, Rotomosh, Terrakion, and Latios. I noticed that Patrick brought a Latios again, which is a Pokemon that he definitely seems comfortable using.
Oh, sweet. We're finally done with the download, so we should be getting into the game pretty soon. Yeah, Latios is a particularly interesting Pokemon in this format. So it saw a lot of use in 2013, back when gems were used, because if you
Draco Gem.
Yeah, for like two main reasons in my opinion. First is that being that when you had gems, when you had like gems, it could be a lot more powerful than it is now. And also because back in 2013, the speed tiers were quite a bit different, and Kangaskhan wasn't really as much of a thing.
They were much lower as compared to they are now.
Yeah, you saw, like, for example, a lot of non-Scarf Landorus, most people opting to use instead Focus Sash or Yachi.
Or the careful span towards the end of the 2013.
Yeah, that was used a tiny bit. And so Latios was able to, do a lot more damage. But now, with the advent of the fairy type, with the advent of, Sucker Punch, Kangaskhan, and a lot more, steel and, some more steel options, Latios has tended to get, quite a bit less usage in the metagame.
It's got a lot of backlash. I know players like Patrick and Collin Heier have been using it.
And Jody, and I believe Gavin has recently turned over to using Latios.
Yeah,
Latios does have a couple of distinct advantages in the current metagame.
It does. Like, it outspeeds Hydreigon, assuming they're not Choice Scarf.
But I believe even more importantly, it outspeeds Terrakion, and I believe with Life Orb it's able to one-shot it, which is fantastic when it's paired with, say, a Kangaskhan, which benefits a lot from not having Thrakion around to shot it. And, Dragon's actually some pretty important features done this the metagame.
It's better Patrick.
Besides, Clefairy and, occasional Sylveons and even more occasional, Gardevoirs, all while having fallen out of, usage since 2014 as with the advent of much stronger fire type options and much more Landorus.
Speaking of the fire type options, he does have an Arcanine on his team, which is a Pokemon that I like a lot in this meta because it's kind of versatile.
I see what you're saying. So I'm not 100% in agreement with you. Mm-hmm. So when I used Arcanine, admittedly it was way before, I think it was before Virginia Regionals. I was testing, Bulk Squad, Venu, Arcanine, Suicune with Mancuso.
Yeah.
If you could get 2 Intimidates, it was bulky enough. It was about as bulky as and we do see, we're going right into the game. We see WolfShock on top with Talonflame, Landorus, Bisharp, Thundurus, Kangaskhan, and Gengar. This is a very standard team. Looks similar to many teams we saw at the beginning of the format, many of which chose to go for, some pretty standard Kangaskhan, Thundurus, Landorus stuff. We saw a bunch of Sylveons, some Heatrans, but in this team we see, Bisharp, a Talonflame, and what's presumably a Focus Sash, probably a Focus Sash Gengar.
Well, just from this, we can assume we can probably assume it's Focus Sash Gengar, and by that logic, we could also assume it's a Life Orb Bisharp.
And then similarly, probably a Choice Band Talonflame, but never that good to make assumptions. Looks like a reasonably solid team. Maybe a bit weak to rain, but doesn't look like there are too many holes in it overall.
Once again, it looks like the Arcanine isn't going to be doing much here, so I would probably just discount it right away, just because Bisharp, the Landorus.
Yeah, Arcanine, normally used because it carries Intimidate. It's able to, weaken your opponent's physical attackers, and it does tend to be good against Kangaskhan, but, considering the special attackers in, Thundurus and Aegislash, Intimidators in Bisharp, and Talonflame, which can do important neutral damage to it with Brave Bird, looks like Patrick's probably not going to bring it. Salamence might be doing a bit of work, but I guess as we're about to head into the game.
I would assume if Salamence is able to set up maybe a Dragon Dance or two, it could start plowing through things. Like a +1 return, which I had been trying to do in our set, it just one-shots the majority of Kangaskhan. So if he could keep up, So if he could keep up a +1, as we see a Kangaskhan Bisharp lead.
Kangaskhan Bisharp, a pretty traditional lead in this format. Bisharp able to use the Defiant ability, which takes opponents Intimidates, and which normally lowers your attack, and instead use it to raise its attack. Very commonly with Kangaskhan, many people try to lead Intimidate into Kangaskhan to try and make it a bit weaker as one of the strongest Pokemon in the format. But Bisharp able to dissuade people from leading that. From Pat's side, we do see the Terrakion and the Rotom, which I believe is a fantastic lead in this situation.
Oh, it's an amazing lead because since we don't really know any information about the Kangaskhan, I would say a Double Protect here would probably be a good play. Scout out a Fake Out, but...
Fake Out Kangaskhan tends to be more used in the metagame, but I actually find that Protect was extremely useful, especially on teams with a Fairy. It's more about switching around, and we could possibly see a Fake Out from this Kangaskhan if we did see a Fake Out onto the Terrakion. Oh, and we see a withdrawal from Bisharp into Gengar. It's a very solid maybe play.
Close combat. That probably guarantees that it is a Life Orb, as it wouldn't want to maybe take a close combat.
That's true, yeah, and it does likely guarantee probably a Fake Out. It seems like it's a Fake Out Kangaskhan in this situation, and he's going to Fake Out. Yes, indeed, he is going to Fake Out the Rotom, predicting a possible close combat from Terrakion onto Bisharp. Solid play from WolfShock, getting some free damage in there, and a nice switch in Gengar.
I actually think that WolfShock has a really good matchup right now just by pulling out that switch, because assuming what I believe to be the best item Terrakion, if that's a Focus Sash Terrakion, the Gengar
Really?
can just Will-O-Wisp it.
I'm not sure about that. I've seen a lot more Lum Terrakion recently.
Well, I do agree that Lumberry is a good item and it is more commonly used. I like Focus Sash just for Terrakion mirror matches because I find Speed Tie so annoying. So I would just love to be able to take a close combat and OHKO the other Terrakion.
That does make sense, yeah. But many of them actually do carry Lumberry. Not everyone thinks the same way as you.
No,
Lumberry does help a bit with the Thundurus matchup, and we do see a switch from Terrakion, meaning that it likely is Lumberry. Oh, into Salamence. That's very interesting.
I would assume maybe then it would be a mixed Salamence, maybe with Hyper Voice, just seeing as he switched in a potential.
Do you see a Protect from Gengar? That's very interesting, and a low kick into Salamence.
Okay.
Okay.
Very interesting. I guess maybe expecting I would see a Thunder Wave.
Okay. So a couple of things happen here. First, very unorthodox Protect from WolfShock. His Gengar wasn't in too much danger, so he was possibly playing to possibly going very deep into reads, thinking that Patrick was a Lumberry Terrakion and would go for the Rock Slide and then Thunderbolt onto Gengar to one-shot it. I guess that's the only reason to protect Gengar there. Kangaskhan, revealing some useful information for Patrick, is indeed a low kick variety, as opposed to and we do see the Salamence low kick as opposed to power up punch, meaning that it won't be boosting itself over the course of the game, making itself stronger. We do see a Protect coming out from Salamence.
I guess that's a reasonable play. Will-O-Wisp, Icy Wind, as we see here,
and we do see Gengar revealing the Icy Wind, a move popularized by Yoshi 137 Marcus and Aaron Zhang, after he started using on the Road to Ranked. And Kangaskhan does reveal itself as the Double Edge variety, unleashing that Double Edge on Rotom. With Intimidate coming from the non-Mega Salamence, though, is not going to be able to kill. Rotom is going to survive and live to fight, to fight another day. Kangaskhan,
I would have to assume that the Salamence would have to be timid, just from that play, because he would only Mega and Protect there if he wanted to outspeed the Gengar next turn. Not
most Salamence tend to run very high speed, trying to outspeed things like Terrakion, things like Gengar, all of which are important opponents, especially for Salamence. You don't want to be flinched. You definitely don't want to be Icy Winded or Will-O-Wisped without your consent. That's going to now the Salamence is faster than the Gengar. It can unleash, say a Hyper Voice, maybe a Double Edge.
Hyper Voice would probably be really nice here. Finish off.
Patrick might be running and we do see Salamence revealing the Double Edge. Solid play. Gengar was definitely
it was definitely a threat here. Double Edge isn't really a move I like too much on some. And we see the Paralyze.
That's very big for Patrick. The Kangaskhan might have been going for the Double Edge onto the Terrakion slot, onto the Rotom slot, which switched into Terrakion, but it also could have been going for the Double Edge onto the Salamence slot, which would be very dangerous if Patrick wasn't a Roost variety. Oh, we do see the switch into Talonflame. Very solid play from WolfShock, but I don't think he's in that good of a position. Terrakion, if it is indeed Focus Sash, as you suggested, is free to just,
Rock Slide or Close Combat at its free will.
Yeah, there are a couple of plays in this situation. If I was WolfShock, and, I'm predicting that Terrakion to, maybe be Focus Sash now, I could Sucker Punch it and then Brave Bird it, which would just...
And even if it isn't Focus Sash, I know a Choice Banded Brave Bird does, at max, I think it was somewhere near 9%.
And we just see
a forfeit.
A forfeit coming out from WolfShock. Very interesting play.
I'm not sure I understand that.
I definitely disagree with that. WolfShock could probably be trying to, hold on to his Talonflame's item. I'm not really sure I see what the point of that was.
I guess just keeping information.
Talonflame?
I could imagine that Jonathan Rankin did use a Safety Goggles Talonflame to top cut
And Jody Azzarelli used a very bulky Talonflame to top cut Nationals.
Nationals last year.
Yeah, it was a Rocky Helmet Talonflame. The idea being to Will-O-Wisp the Kangaskhan, and then you would just beat it one-on-one with Rocky Helmet damage. It was actually quite amusing. So he could have decided that, because he was bulky Talonflame, to not reveal more information about the Talonflame and the Bisharp, but that was a very early forfeit. Very strange.
It was. I could really only see that as trying to preserve specific information for this, such as a bulky Talonflame or maybe even a Sash Bisharp if it came down to it.
Yeah, I guess it's just all very confusing.
Yeah. I would actually think that maybe the Gengar is a secondary Mega, seeing as how it showed Protect. Because most don't tend to run it. Like, I know Aaron's, for example, had run Icy Wind, Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, Sludge Bomb.
Yeah, that is true. I'm inclined to disagree with you. I personally tend to run a more offensive Gengar. A different type of Gengar. I run Sludge Bomb, Shadow Ball, Will-O-Wisp, and Protect. Because I think, especially, maybe not necessarily with this kind of team, but I value doing a lot of damage to Aegislash. I think that's pretty important I used it on a Metagross team, but it was pretty important in the matchup. Aegislash being very strong Pokemon in the metagame, basically immune to damage from, if the Gengar only carries Sludge Bomb to, 3 of the Pokemon, and if it goes for a wide guard, kind of 4.
And we're seeing the timer go really close. It's definitely a hard matchup for both of them, just because of the way their teams are built. Like, there's certain Pokemon that you don't want to bring, and then there are others that you really do, but there are threats to them, such as the Salamence and the Gengar. They're not really Pokemon that you want to be leading into each other.
We do see the Genie's lead from WolfShock, very traditional lead in this metagame. Landorus is able to use its Intimidate to weaken Pokemon, get off Rock Slides. Thundurus can fire off Thunder Waves. It's just, it's just a very irritating duo to face. There aren't that many things that are particularly strong against it, except strong ice types and, to an extent, Rotom W.
Yeah, the Rotom Washer lead is pretty nice because it can just get off Hydro Pump or Will-O-Wisp at its disposal. But
Thundurus does possibly have the taunt move Taunt.
Very true.
Yeah, I personally tend to use a more offensive Thundurus, but many people choose to use a more defensive Thundurus to
It's very Thunder Wave, Taunt, Swagger,
possibly
HP
Swagger, HP Ice, Thunderbolt. Generally a variant of those movesets, usually carrying Thunderbolt and HP Ice. I think Patrick's Terrakion, though, it definitely wants to switch out from here, or possibly Protect. There is no good reason for it to stay in. We might see a Will-O-Wisp aimed at the Landorus slot, but it also could U-turn into, say, a Talonflame, which would be, an interesting play.
Does a Talonflame go down to a -1 Rock Slide?
Probably. I can't imagine it wouldn't, unless it was Chartyberry. We do see the Thunder Wave coming out onto the Terrakion protecting from that.
See a U-turn.
Reasonable U-turn from the Landorus.
To me, that looks like it does a decent amount of damage. It could be choice banded.
I'm not at all sure about that.
I'm not sure either. It just seems like a lot for a U-turn to me.
That's true. We do see a switch into Gengar, and we see the Hydro Pump missing on the Gengar.
Which could hurt if it's a potential Sash.
Yes, that would most likely hurt. And now, we could see a possible Thunder Wave and Will-O-Wisp into the Terrakion slot, maybe a double up into the Rotom slot. I think this is a pretty even position for both sides.
Definitely, because we're not really sure what Patrick has in the back, so there could be some sort of switch out into maybe a Latios, which would put on some offensive pressure.
That's true. I'm not sure if I'd like a switch out into Latios, seeing as Latios...
As we do see the Thunder Wave.
We do see the Thunder Wave going into the Terrakion, and the item is revealed. Terrakion is a focus sash, but it is paralyzed, which is very... and you see the second... Hydro Pump from Rotom. That's very interesting. Rotom, in this position, I would normally Thunderbolt if I was not choice locked into a move.
I would too, which seems very interesting.
Yeah, that does seem to imply to me that, maybe this Rotom has choice specs on it that could explain the amount of damage that, seems a bit too much to be regular choice scarf, but a bit too little to be, choice banned.
Definitely. But the thing is, if it were to be choice, it did show the Thunder Wave last game.
Oh, it did? Yeah, that was very interesting.
So
did it Thunderbolt after that, or did it switch out?
I think he forfeited. Oh no, it switched out.
Oh, we do see the Protect coming out from Terrakion, heating up the double attack. Oh,
and it's not choiced.
It's not choiced.
So
it didn't Thunderbolt in that situation. Maybe Patrick predicted a switch into Landorus to reset the Intimidate.
Now, actually, he could probably just double up onto the Gengar with, say, a Rock Slide Thunderbolt.
Yeah, I do believe that Terrakion could possibly be knocked out by that, but, I'm not sure. Given that the Thundurus appears to be a more defensive variety, I think Terrakion would probably be fine. He might want to do more damage to the Thundurus instead, though.
The Thundurus does seem to be the bigger problem here, spreading the paralysis.
Yeah, Patrick's team is, generally pretty fast. And we do, just see the Thunderbolt coming out from the Thundurus. Roden's going to use Hydro Pump onto the Gengar, trying to break the Focus Sash.
Does he maybe not have Thunderbolt? Maybe he has something like Volt Switch?
That would make sense. And we do see the survival from Terrakion going to use a Rock Slide. That is very big, not paralyzed.
It
fails to take out Gengar. Just goes to show you, again, the power of Intimidate. That did almost...
This is definitely a playing field right now, but it really comes down to who can get off a strong knockout here, or potentially even a double knockout.
Yeah, Patrick's team doesn't have that many. It doesn't have that many spread moves besides from Terrakion, or possibly Hyper Voice from Salamence. Probably not though. And Terrakion
seeing that showed double edge.
Yeah, and so he's not going to be able to do, well-placed amounts of damage to, Wolfshock's Thundurus without his Rotom W, and he won't be able to take out Gengar at the same time. Most Thundurus tend to carry, a move an item such as Citrus Berry. So Thundurus is, sitting quite pretty in that situation.
Yeah, sitting pretty nice.
Yeah, there's not much from Patrick's side that can threaten it. This Rotom spread is very interesting. Oh, we do see the switch out from Thundurus into the Landorus. I'm not sure I agree with that play. I'm not sure either. Yeah, in Patrick's position, I probably would have been Hydro Pumping into that slot, trying to deal as much damage as possible. We do see the Protect coming out from Terrakion. Thinking about a possible Thunderbolt. We do see
Thunderbolt into the Gengar.
This is very confusing. Why didn't he Thunderbolt before?
I don't know. I guess the Landorus switch in potentially, but I don't get why he would switch in the Landorus in that situation. Yeah,
there were a lot of questionable plays that have been going on. Terrakion staying alive, can't question that though. It's going to be alive to, possibly take some damage this turn, get sacrificed. We do see a switch into Kangaskhan, revealing Wolfshock's fourth Pokemon. Now would be a very strong situation to say, Hydro Pump to say, just protect the Rotom, take some damage. That Kangaskhan can't pup itself.
Exactly. It doesn't even have pup.
Yeah, I would definitely pup in this situation. This is the reason you have pup.
Exactly.
So you can pup yourself. But, it can't even pup itself in this situation, so, maybe it's best to just sacrifice Terrakion so you can bring in Salamence, get an Intimidate off, maybe do some...
I think that could be nice, but now that the Terrakion is very weakened and paralyzed, it's going to be a hard situation to start dealing consistent damage to the Kangaskhan.
That's true. We do see, just a fake out onto the Rotom and a U-turn coming out from the Landorus onto the Terrakion. Solid play from... it did not survive. No. What a shame.
That it survived, I would have...
It always looks very strange when it goes towards the bottom. You can never really tell if Pokemon are dying or surviving. You know what I'm saying? Like when it's really close.
Exactly, like the 10 or less HP survivals.
Yeah, and so we do see, a switch into Thunderous. That was pretty strong, preventing an easy an easy Salamence switch in. Now Patrick is
you do see the Salamence.
Gonna switch in Salamence anyway.
Potentially he has the Latios in the back.
Yeah, that is possible. We might just see, probably Protect or a switch out from Salamence in this situation. Or maybe just a double up into Kangaskhan. Patrick has a lot of options, but the Thunderous is looking very, very scary with its Thunder Wave, with its Hidden Power Ice.
Potentially.
That's not going to be that good for Patrick in this situation. But Rotom, has a bunch of health left. It can Thunder Wave things, get some more paralyzes as happened last game. We'll definitely see what happens. Salamence just decided maybe Evolve and just go straight for the double edge faster. Oh, and that did a lot of damage. Oh my god!
The double edge into
the Rotom. Rotom's definitely going to survive that with the help of the Citrus Berry.
Will it survive a double edge plus Thunderbolt potentially?
That is the question. And so the Kangaskhan is damaged by recoil, knocks itself out. Excellent play from Patrick. And we do see the Thunderbolt onto the Rotom. WolfShock predicting the Protect I discussed earlier.
And survives.
Oh my god.
This puts Patrick in an amazing position.
And there was a critical hit from that Thunderbolt. I really don't understand this Rotom. And do no damage.
It's confusing me because...
It's just very confusing. So see the Landorus switch in, WolfShock down to his last two Pokemon in this set. We're likely to see, possibly a Thunder Wave onto the Salamence and, a Rock Slide from the Landorus. We don't know if it's Choice Scarfed, but it's probably safe to assume.
Yes, we will find out now.
A Thunder Wave onto the Salamence. Nathan WolfShock choosing to go for the excellent Rock Slide plus Thunder Wave strategy, and Salamence avoids and goes for the
Draco Meteor.
That is very lucky for Patrick. He did choose to go for a mixed Salamence, and that will knock out the Thunderous. Okay, so now
the game isn't over yet because Rock Slide flinches are a thing.
If Patrick has Aegislash in the back, it is
over if Patrick does have Aegislash.
If Patrick has, Aegislash or Latios are probably the most likely in this situation. We do see Patrick not choosing to switch out, probably not wanting to get extra damage. Oh my god, that did
the critical
hit. That makes a bit more sense. And we do see the flinch coming out from the
if this is Aegislash, then Patrick definitely wins here.
And it is Latios.
So this is gonna come down.
If I was Patrick in this situation, I would definitely protect with my Salamence.
Definitely, I would protect Salamence and probably Psychic here.
And he shows you Choice Scarf Latios.
Choice Scarf Latios with Ice Beam.
And that is a one-shot.
And that is
the
second game.
A 2-0
Patrick is 1-2-0.
Very interesting move on Latios. I haven't seen that yet this season. You didn't see it much back in 2013 either, but very convincing 2-0 win. I'm going to go into that in my bracket, and we will update to see if WolfShock is still in the lead. And we will hope he isn't. Because I do not like other people being in the lead.
I haven't actually seen Ice Beam on Latios this season. Whenever I see Choice Scarf, I usually see Trick in that last slot. It's definitely weird.
Trick, Psychic, Draco Meteor, and what?
And Filler.
Well, Ice Beam, right? Oh, and we do see that Scott has become the front leader in the predictions tournament. Excellent plays by Scott, predicting Patrick to win. WolfShock is behind by only 1 point, and I have fallen all the way down to 15th. I suck.
I started off this prediction tournament horribly.
What's the name of your prediction?
Primitive Instinct. because I was.
Did you see Lightcore all the way down in 55th place? Predicted such excellent players as Randy to beat William, having predicted Metaboo to beat Doge. Terrible choice.
I didn't know either of the players.
Predicting Flash to beat Shimonino, having predicted Sam to beat Green Irokex, having picked Mac Dees to beat Echo Moner, having picked Caleb to lose. Oh my god.
Caleb is bad. Caleb is
very
bad.
Sad.
It's pathetic. My entire bracket is resting on Patrick, and I don't even remember how far I put him.
It does not matter. Okay, so excellent game from Patrick, and I guess we'll see you guys all later. Bye.
Okay.